everyone. Now, what I'm going to be doing for today is I'm going to be using the studies of some shards, personal shards, and I wanted to kind of show how to recognize certain traits, especially when it comes to like whether financial benefits and opportunities, maybe love opportunities, maybe even looking how to discover maybe the type of traits you're looking in someone, and if maybe currently the person you're dealing with is the one for you. So, right now I have Caitlyn's birth chart. So, let me kind of go over very quickly maybe some of the significant traits that I kind of recognize and some of the things that I think she could easily keep an eye out for. Now, if you have a chart that's kind of similar, this might actually benefit you too. Take, for instance, right now with this chart here, I wanted to point out that as you kind of look at the first house, give or take, we usually um, that's where we discover our rising sign and our ascendant. So obviously we're looking at a Pisces rising sign or ascendant. But I always tell everyone when you're going to read your horoscope and you know your rising sign, also read the horoscope of what is in your first house. So as you can see here, she also has Aries in her first house. So I would be telling her not just to read Pisces, but also to read Aries. So obviously she's a double Pisces, but reading Aries horoscopes can also tell her what to expect for her horoscope. Now, as I keep kind of looking further out, this is a birth chart and transit chart, as you can see, a pair natal and transits. So, obviously, the natal birth chart in conjunction with where the planets are currently traveling, like here and here and here. So, right now we have obviously the sun, Jupiter, and Neptune all in Pisces. And then I kind of like going further down in the second house, we have Uranus. So, one thing that I discover with Uranus in the second house, there's positives and negatives. So, on the positive, I have seen where people see a major increase in their finances, sometimes even a really big boost, a significant boost. And this because Uranus likes to just um, be surprising and be jolting and just give this exuberant amount of energy that it could come from one day to the next, from one week to the next. For instance, someone is getting paid, I don't know, $15 an hour, and then they get a raise instead of only from $15 an hour, they go up to $30 an hour. So there's a significant career or financial opportunity there. So the positives with Uranus in the second house is that it can increase the finances literally significantly. Now, Uranus likes to be in a house for a good 7 years. Now, the negative. So, the negative that I've noticed with Uranus in the second house, and I've seen this many times, and I hope it doesn't happen to her, is an increase of debts. And I've even seen where people go into debt, maybe overwhelming of debt. Now, this could be maybe because if there are some significance going on, take for instance, uh, building up debt from getting a house, getting a car, getting, all different, credit cards. But my concern, I usually, put out there to keep an eye out for is take, for instance, if you suddenly lose a job. And so now you suddenly have this collection of debt. And now it's like, well, how do I pay my debt? How do I pay my bills? And sometimes, yes, that could lead to bankruptcies. That could lead to just, tax issues. So, even though Uranus is in the second house, anything relating with taxes and credit, I always look at the eighth house. So the eighth house is way over here. So obviously, there's nothing in the eighth house. But whenever you're looking at credit issues and tax issues, I usually like looking at at the eighth house for that. The second house is pretty much the debt itself. It doesn't matter if it's, from taxes or credit or anything. So that might be maybe the only little minor concern that I would have for her, as she has this Uranus in her second house. Now, as we go further down, obviously, I notice in her fourth house of home, she has a Jupiter Saturn conjunction. I like this because it relates to the home. She would do well with um, uh, investing in the home, even getting into real estate, or people that do investments of the home, like flipping houses. This would actually, I feel, would benefit her. She might even be benefiting through any kind of creativity, like interior design. So, this also tells me she would do well in investing in homes or in a home and probably even um, be in a home for decades, not just for like 2, 3 years and then move. This would be for decades. Um, Small possibility that there could be some financial issues relating to the home, but that could be a possibility too. Now, as we continue on here, and as we kind of see that she obviously has her sun and Mercury in the fifth house. So lots of creativity. Probably wouldn't even be surprised that anything with gifts of creativity, whether it's crafting, design, music, um, when I look at somebody who has the sun in the fifth house, I always think, wow, this person most likely knows music or has played instruments or has learned how to really uh, learn about crafting and creating and just easily designing. So this can actually really significantly highlight the ability to put a project together, whether it's related with music, movies, writing, design, arts, the artwork kind of thing. So that I definitely like. Now, actually, as we get into a Jupiter in the sixth house, so one of the things that I noticed, okay, if you have Jupiter in the second house, I always tell people that usually gives them a little, even in transits, that means it'll go easy for you to easily get a job or get job offers. When you have it in the sixth house, um, it will bring about a good amount of increase of work projects. The health tends to be positive. My only little concern is that we do have an opposition here to Neptune. Neptune can represent alcoholism. Not saying she's alcoholic or anything, but there could be a possibility of future issues with alcohol or drugs or anything like that. So she might be sensitive, maybe even to medications. This could actually become a situation where I've even seen a fluctuation of weight, so there could be the possibility of losing, then gaining, then losing, then gaining. So it's just about how um, she herself handles her body, and maybe certain things to just recognize. Having the moon in the seventh house, to me, I just kind of notice it as just easily being able to connect and communicate with others and just even easily attract other people. Whether it doesn't have to be like partners, it could just be friends, or if you're in an environment where you have to deal with clients and customers, I think this would actually be a great kind of energy to attract and to be easy to be able to work and talking with others. So, as we kind of continue on, now I do notice that for our 10th house, we have Pluto. This could actually be very, very positive when it comes to being a go getter, pursuing like management. What I tend to look for with people who have a Pluto and they have Sagittarius, um, I was even told by another astrologer way back when that this actually even increases the ability to want to even do like someone who becomes like a pilot or gets into aircraft, travels, maybe get into the airline industry. So this could actually be positive in that sense. To me, what I notice is just someone who has the ability to be more of a manager, manage, even start their own business, run their own business, and be very focused on just pursuing opportunities to really advance and push for trying to be as ambitious and hardworking to succeed. So the energy is there for that. Now, so one of the things that I'm kind of looking at as we look at the transits, which is all these in green, obviously we're in Capricorn. We're about to go into Aquarius on the March 5th. So this kind of travels into this. We have the Mercury and Saturn in the 12th house. So the mind is just racing with many thoughts and ideas. I would suggest for her to write these ideas down because the mind will be racing with just many, whether it's planning and organizing and just kind of getting more focused and centered with that. If not, her brain will just be all over the place. So, like I was saying with the transits, we have the Sun, Jupiter, and Pisces here. Um, Her rising sign is Pisces, and like I said, Aries here. What I do notice when it comes down to the Uranus and the Mars, lots of energy, lots of energy. This is someone when I see either a Uranus and a Mars, or both, or one, I just think, wow, this person can go all day, you know, and she'll be in her 60s and 70s and still going. So lots of energy. This is great for getting projects, completed. To just keep working hard, to keep just pushing to do well, and to just keep pushing that energy to just get projects done and completed. Um, One of the things that I would say is, the Uranus energy in the first house really is also about identity. And this could actually bring about the identity and how others view you. I've actually even have seen where I interpretations of Uranus in the first house, like someone being very tall, someone being short, someone being very different in how they dress. Like if they're the type of people that like playing with their hair or hair color, being unique. Uranus and Mars. And then everything also, as we're dealing with the first house, is the first house is a sense of identity and how others view you. But this is actually also a great time to focus on if something needs to be dealt with or changed. This is usually the area that I look at for how a person is actually also viewed in themselves. Um, Appearance is the big word. Whether appearance, as in, like I said, hairstyles, your own image, if you're gained weight, if you lost weight, if you change hair color, uh, taking on a new kind of identity. Now, this is also the house you want to look at when someone also, let's say, gets married. You usually want to look for any kind of major conjunctions or what's traveling in the ascendant, crossing the ascendant, or going. Just kind of wanted to finish up on something here very quickly. Obviously, as we are kind of going through her chart and kind of was focusing on certain things that were kind of popping up here for me. Um, right now, the only thing, if I was kind of doing a reading here, and if you kind of are trying to study your chart, one of the things that I would say is you definitely want to take a close eye on the planets Uranus. And also, usually I would always suggest Uranus, Saturn. When I look at a Saturn in the 12th house, which is right here, I interpret it as worrying about debt, a feeling that there could be debt, and also the feeling of taking care of any issues relating with like um, health and well being. Uh, Anytime when you're dealing with the Saturn in the 12th house, you definitely want to focus on what it is that you need to take care of for your own health and well-being. Sometimes this could relate to people that do surgeries or focus on taking care of what they need to, maybe to discard the old to make way for the new. This could sometimes even relate to the end of a relationship or any kind of commitment kind of thing. And it's just the beginning of the start of something new. But the one big interpretation is the worrying about money or worrying about not having enough money. And so maybe looking at this Uranus in the second house, this tells me maybe there might be some financial issues or concerns that maybe have been increasing or maybe have started to. So that's one of the big ones that I would take away from this. Jupiter, I love Jupiter. Jupiter always loves giving you something. When it's retrograding, it kind of goes to sleep. So you always want to look at where Jupiter is at. Jupiter loves to always give. Jupiter in the first house usually can make you more confident, more happier, but also indulgent in food. So maybe something to keep an eye out for. Um, so if I was looking at this chart, I think my main thing would be about the financials and maybe just looking over on the financials that there could be issues having to deal with that. Um, but maybe this is just giving the heads up that whatever can be done to try to budget, to look over the finances and get ahead, this could actually help a lot to just be aware that, if you need to start budgeting, maybe cutting back on some expenses, that it'll pay off here in the future. This is the natal chart, and then we have the transits. Again, the transits are in green. Now, again, when I look at the chart, the first thing I'm looking at obviously is the rising sign and what's in the first house. Again, when I always look at the rising sign, we have Capricorn. In the first house, we also have a little bit of Aquarius. If I was, giving her this reading, I would say look at for Capricorn, besides her sun in Leo, then also Capricorn, and then also just an additional Aquarius. Um, Obviously, we have some of the planets transiting here, traveling here, like your Mars and your Pluto and Capricorn. But again, on March 5th, they will be entering Aquarius. Now, for me, one of the things that I start looking into is what's going on in the second house. That's a big one for me, just because, many times people are always asking me about finances. We got the sun, we got Jupiter, we have Neptune. Obviously, we're having Saturn going into the second house here and Mercury. Lots going on with the finances. Jupiter in the second house, I've noticed people have the ability to easily get job opportunities. I've even noticed people getting job offers pretty quick. So, for instance, it could be within a week or two that they get a job offer, or someone brings them this job. So, connections where maybe they don't even have to apply for the job. And I've seen things like that happen. Um, Let me see here. One of the things that I picked up is there could be some kind of indication of travel with this, when not just with the Jupiter, but I see this Neptune here. And when I look at the ninth house with all this going on in her natal chart, it doesn't surprise me at all that there could be some travel involved, either in her career, or also maybe that some of these job opportunities require her to relocate. And this could even be maybe even relocating to another country, um, or another state. So that's kind of significant that I notice seems to be looking good here. Um, so one of the other things I notice is obviously we have the fourth house, we have Uranus in the fourth house. So one thing that when I put out there about Uranus in the fourth house, I've seen people have to swiftly and quickly change, relocate, change, obviously a home, or if they're selling a home that it sells so fast that they have to relocate pretty quick. Um, this could bring about possibly issues with the home. It could relate to the people they live with, issues relating with appliances, electronics, electrical issues. Uranus rules electricity. So this could relate to issues relating with electrical work, um, especially if there's any kind of issues relating to appliances giving out and having to replace those, things like that. Maybe in a good way, it could help to have to forcefully make some renovations or repairs. Some things that might be were already so outdated, they just were overdue to be replaced. Um, but this could also relate to, like I said, changes in the home and having to make these changes pretty quick. So there could be possibilities of making some money in the home. So maybe selling the home pretty quick and then having to make some money off of it. Okay, so for her NATO, I noticed the Saturn in the fourth house. That could actually be pretty good because it creates like a balance and a structure, but I've also seen it can create issues in the home. Again, like electrical work, having to deal with people maybe living nearby the home, creating issues in the home. So there could be some disruptions with the home. Now, let's see here. Obviously, having the Mars in the seventh house could create some issues with partners. I'm trying to see here. There could even be the possibility of more than one marriage. And with this square right here with Saturn can create some disruptions in partnerships, relationships, and marriage. So that wouldn't surprise me if there's more than one. Let's see here. The sun in the eighth house does increase psychic abilities, the abilities to want to learn also about, the dreams, interpretations, about ghosts, the paranormal, also having intuitive and psychic abilities too. So I like that. Again, let me see here. I talked about the ninth house. Jupiter, I love Jupiter in the 10th house. Obviously relates to career, and this could bring about great career opportunities there. The energy is also very positive for advancement, management, maybe even starting a business or own business venture. So that's looking really, really good. Um, when I look at the Neptune in the 11th house, probably maybe notice, not necessarily that I would say a lot of friends, but having intimate group of friends. So, not necessarily that it's about being selfish or anything like that. It's just sometimes there will be this indication of only having a very small group and only sticking with those two that could be trusted. So, very narrowing down who to trust or who to be around. And I kind of like that the way, as kind of older in age, that that group just will stick for 20, 30 years. So that's kind of really good. If I was really looking over all this and I was to try to see, like, okay, what's going on and how things are kind of building up and so forth, I think one of the things that I would be obviously keeping an eye would be the Uranus here in the fourth house. I love the Sun, the Jupiter, and Neptune in the second house. We have the Saturn going into the second house. So if I was looking at this, I'd be like, wow, this person's going to have a lot of opportunity to make more money, run into some great financial opportunities for more money. Um, and this could be very significant for career. And that's one of the things that really stands out, at least on my end, for that part of the second house. Conclusion here. If I was kind of looking at, well, what am I looking at here? Where are things really standing out? Um, like I said, the two houses for me would be the fourth house of home and Uranus, the second house, and all this right here that looks very, very good. Um, so later on in the year, we're going to be having Mars in Gemini. And Gemini for Mary is all up in here, the fifth house and the sixth house. The fifth house well, actually, there's a little bit of the fifth house. Actually, there's a little bit of a here in Taurus, but here in Gemini, um, there's going to be a lot of activity. I feel work is going to be a big one, seeing an increase of tasks and projects. The health is going to be significant. A lot of energy. I could see her maybe exercising, being very active, running around, whether it's running around, taking care of tasks and projects. Um, this could also be a time where, if she is looking maybe to get a pet or spend more time with a new pet, she'll definitely be active and taking the dog or any pet, spending more time. Like, let's say if it was a dog, taking out for walks, or maybe she even gets more involved in a exercising, an exercise program, health program, any issues with health, maybe to be more active, maybe looking to lose weight and get more involved. This would actually be looking very good. Work wise, I mean, the sixth house, Gemini in the sixth house. Now, Mars in Gemini will be from July all the way through March 2023. So there's definitely going to be a lot of activity and her being very busy and active. So this can actually be very positive, but she could definitely feel very worn out. She'll have a lot of energy, but she'll definitely be keeping herself busy. This could easily bring her more money, especially when we have that whole Jupiter going on in the second house before moving on to the third house later on. But that energy of the Jupiter in the second house and then Mars in the sixth house could easily be indication of greater work opportunities and more money. So today we're going to be going over Laura. Um, so we're definitely going to be having the NATO chart and the transit chart. Now, I'm not going to be looking for anything specific. I'm just kind of going through this overview into identifying, maybe this could help you as you are reading your chart to see maybe some significant factors or some things to keep an eye out for. Now, the one thing that I do want to mention is that astrology is based on individual interpretation. Many times I've run into situations where I've had a client come to me and say, "Oh, they told me this and this and this from my chart." And when I look at it, it's like, well, I don't get that. Or certain things that I notice and recognize that the other astrologer or even a reader didn't recognize, or maybe they have their own interpretation versus what I interpret. So I always put it out there that astrology is also based on, one's interpretation. I try to go with not only some common factors that I've noticed, um, but also just all these years. I mean, I've been doing this for about 20 years. I've read probably thousands of charts to kind of recognize certain patterns. Everyone is different, but certain things can have a common denominator. So I like to just kind of go into to see every chart. I pursue it as something different. And if there is something that is recognizable that stands out, it will come to me and I will either point it out. This can actually help the individual maybe to be aware of. So I want to just kind of put out there that, especially if you're learning on how to interpret charts, whether it's your chart or someone else's, you might have your own interpretation. Another astrologer could have their own interpretation, and just to kind of take it in as all of information. There's plenty of astrology books out there for you to be able to read, and that could help you with more interpretations. And all I say is the more information, the better. Helps you to put everything together in one. So let me go over with Laura here and see what we're looking at. Obviously, we have an ascendant in Scorpio, and I would call this also the sun in Scorpio. So, actually, she may even be finding herself liking more darkness than light. For instance, it kind of reminds me of like people who like taking a lot of naps, um, or who are big on napping. And when I say big on napping, meaning usually we think a nap 15-20 minutes. She might even be finding herself taking 2-hour naps. So I wouldn't be surprised of anything like that. Um, Communication is good, lots of activity and communication and so forth. So I want to kind of go down here. Oops. And kind of look at, I'm always looking at the bigger planets, like your Plutos, because they're the slower moving planets. Your slower moving planets are going to be like your Pluto, your Saturn, your Jupiter, your Uranus, Neptune. They stay in a house for years. Jupiter only stays in a house for 12 months. But all these other planets can easily stay for 7, 10, 15 years. So I like keeping an eye on what's going on. Like Pluto starting to go into the third house. We do have in her natal Saturn in the third house. So this could bring about some challenges when this Pluto really starts hitting uh, what we call a conjunction with the Saturn. This could create some challenges with transportation, communication. What I do feel, this could actually bring about a time of studies and any form of education. Now, from what I see here, it looks like she was born 1962. So there might be, when you're studying a chart, going, well, could this person go back to school so late in years? It doesn't necessarily have to be going back to school, even though that is a possibility. I've actually seen it, people just studying and researching and learning. This could be learning about just a new topic, a new language, maybe even taking on some studies. So, this could also affect driving. Maybe she starts cutting back in driving, or maybe even doing more short trips, like going on road trips, doing some more traveling in that sense. Obviously, we have the Saturn here in the third house. And so this could be an indication of issues that have been going on with the third house. She had just experienced a Saturn return. You see the Saturn over here, the Saturn over here, probably within the last year. So there might have been some significant internal changes also, whether internal changes could be like a divorce, a breakup, or maybe even a new relationship. Let me see here as we go into the third, going into the fourth. It's interesting how Jupiter and Neptune are traveling in our fourth house of home. Now, with the fourth house of home and with Jupiter and Neptune, this could be an indication of relocating, making some renovations or changes in the home, adding value to the home, maybe even purchasing a bigger home or making some significant changes relating to the home. Now, when I look at the Neptune in the fourth house, what's interesting is I have seen, and I'm not saying this is related to her. The word alcoholism comes through. Not saying, like I said, I'm not saying she's an alcoholic or anything like that, but maybe running into issues of other people having alcohol issues, whether it's a parent, someone maybe you live with, maybe a family member. So there might be issues in connection to that, or someone going through issues relating to that. So that might be kind of interesting that I would have to ask her about that, or she might know some people. And if you run into Neptune in the fourth house, there could be a relation to that. Also, when it comes down to the home, because Neptune rules water, I like associating it as a time where if you are looking maybe to relocate, maybe even purchase a place near water, like a lake, a beach, um, a river of some sort, or maybe even traveling to places near water, like a vacation home. So that could be also very significant too. Now, one of the things that I like here is so whenever I look at Uranus and the sixth house, this is the sixth house, this is Uranus. It's a time of independence. This could be a time for her age, maybe retirement, going on a part time retirement, maybe even taking on a new way of working, like working from home, having a more flexible schedule. So, one of the other things that also tends to possibly happen, and I'm not saying everybody goes through this, is like anxiety issues, stress. This is more on a health related situation. Anxiety, stress, or other issues that might be related with on a mental level. Um, whether it's work related, maybe it's not work related. So there could be the possibility of that. And if I was, consulting her, I would say maybe just something to be aware of if she's been experiencing any kind of situations like this. It might just be an indication of maybe taking on some exercising or maybe time to go to the doctor to see if there are any issues to be worried about. So that could be also something that I've noticed with Uranus in the sixth house can bring issues of anxiety, stress, or other, like I said, mental, not mental in a negative way, but maybe sometimes it could just be stress related, and um, it's maybe time to start taking a break, start to cut back. And this might be a time to just take on a new way of handling the work situation. And maybe it is a time to start cutting back on hours or maybe working from home. Um, just kind of, if you are kind of studying a chart, whether it's yours or somebody else, work wise, it could be an indication of just wanting to do something more independently. I've even seen people just quit jobs when a Uranus hits the sixth house. And so it could also be that maybe just all of a sudden just quitting, maybe just to start something completely new. On a health related level, like I said, like anxiety issues, stress issues, maybe time to just kind of, focus on the well being and really focusing on what to do in order to have a better lifestyle, better health related, lifestyle there. So, just kind of going over here. One thing when I notice a Gemini in the seventh house, because the seventh house does rule marriage. Gemini is the sign of the twins, obviously an indication of two. Whenever I do a reading and I see a Gemini in the seventh house, because Gemini, like I said, is a representation of the twins, I can sometimes interpret this as two marriages, or someone who does have either multiple marriages, multiple engagements, or proposals. So this itself here doesn't surprise me if they have at least two marriages or get married two times. Um, okay, so the Mars, usually when I look at with Mars, I see there is an opposition with Saturn. Obviously, this can be a challenge when it comes to feeling the ability to be able um, to advance and move forward. And if there's been any kind of challenges, I do also notice that there are some squares here going to the sun and also with Venus. So this could be also an indication of challenges with partners and relationships. Maybe, depending on what's been going on, it could be sometimes, trusting someone a little bit too much, only to be disappointed at the end. So it just kind of depends on what's been going on. Now, looking at the rest of the chart, obviously, like the interpretation of Uranus, in conjunction, and Pluto in conjunction with the 10th house and the midhaven. So, obviously, this is all about career. This could actually be an indication of making significant changes with career or always pursuing some form of individuality. Um, this could actually even relate to education. So, this could actually be maybe running an ability to start their own, whether it's daycare, preschool, some kind of education, or maybe even online classes and courses. If there is a situation where maybe that has not happened, I would be telling her, be open to it because the energy is actually there to do that, to have the gift and the ability to do something like online classes, master classes, being able to teach others, whether it's a particular subject, or like coaching or any kind of business, stuff like that. Obviously, with this Uranus here in the sixth house, this would be a perfect time for her to pursue situations like this because the sixth house makes her more patient and have that energy, well, because of the Taurus, to have that energy to really pursue those types of uh, paths, those types of abilities, to put all that together. Anything online, sell through online, pursue online. I think she would be great at it. So that's kind of like big one that's going on with that. Um, one of the things that I would say just by kind of going over, looking at her chart, besides maybe some of these squares that can be maybe a little frustrating, I think if anything, if I was looking over her chart, I would be just telling her, well, this is actually going to be a time of really focusing on uh, her own individuality and really even pursuing new ventures and new opportunities that she would do so well with any kind of education, training, that she would have the ability to teach others and to show to others. And this could actually really pay off on a long term sense if she wanted to have that patience to pursue that. Now, I'm going to just scroll down very quickly here and see some of the transits that's going on at this time. Trying to see here. I kind of want to go more further down over here. Got Jupiter, got Saturn, got Uranus. See if anything stands out. Yeah, there are some, conjunctions and energy that's standing out. But yeah, everything that I keep getting for her, I really feel that this is actually going to be a very, to me, education or something with education, training, online. I think she would do well with this, with that. And if she hasn't been open to something like that, I would tell her maybe it might be something that she might want to be open to because I feel she would be great at it. So this is one chart. If you kind of are going through anything similar to this, some things to just recognize that could help you out. And this could actually, whether it benefits you, maybe certain things to kind of recognize, certain planets that are entering certain houses, whether it's, like I said, Uranus in the sixth house, um, Jupiter and Neptune in the fourth house, and the third house, and any kind of conjunctions here. Just certain things to be aware of that could be very beneficial for you. And maybe just to be aware of that some things, if you're aware of what could come about, just learning a way to just knowing how to handle it. And you'll be, able to move forward with that.